Hi, welcome to my video on psychological explanations of schizophrenia. This follows on from the video of biological explanations. As ever, all of the information comes from the Pink Hair Girl textbook. Please don't sue me. And I've basically summarised the information in the textbook, so there's a little bit more information in here, but I've tried to sort of explain it a little bit more. So, this video is specifically on the psychological explanations of schizophrenia on page 206 and 207. Okay, so the first psychological explanation of schizophrenia is called the schizophrenic mother. I can't talk today. So, from Reichman in 1948 proposed a psychodynamic explanation for schizophrenia based on patient accounts of what their parents were like. And she found that there was a link between a cold, rejecting and controlling mother who tends to create a family which is characterised by tension and secrecy, which leads to distrust that later develops into paranoid delusions, a belief that they're being persecuted by another person, and then eventually into schizophrenia. So schizophrenic basically means schizophrenia causing. So basically the mother has caused the schizophrenia. It's always the mother's fault. The next psychological explanation is a double bind theory. Bateson et al. In 1972, he agreed that family is really important in developing schizophrenia, but he emphasised the role of communication instead, rather than it just all being the mother's fault. And he said that a certain communication style was a risk factor in developing schizophrenia. So the child regularly finds themselves in a situation where they fear doing the wrong thing, but receive mixed messages about what the wrong thing is, and they can't express how unfair it is because the way the parent is expressing themselves, they're not sort of listening to the child. They're not letting the child say, "Oh no, that's not fair. Why is this like this?" And then when the child gets it wrong, which inevitably they do because they don't really know what the rules are, they don't really know what is right and what is wrong, they get punished by the parent withdrawing their love for the child. This leaves the child confused, thinking the world is dangerous, the world is confusing. Parents and families are supposed to be a safe place for children, and like a safe base to touch back onto whilst exploring the world. So this then leads to symptoms such as disorganised thinking and paranoid delusions because the child literally doesn't feel like they have a safe space to be in. Another psychological explanation of schizophrenia is expressed emotion, in particular negative emotions, which are sort of aimed at the person with schizophrenia. So verbal criticism, often accompanied by violence, hostility, including anger and rejection, and emotional over-involvement, including self-sacrifice of the carer or the parent towards the person with schizophrenia. So the parent is like, "Oh, I've given up my time, I've given up my day, I've had to give up money or whatever to look after you." So that over-involvement and that self-sacrifice. High levels of expressed emotion cause the schizophrenic stress and has explained why schizophrenia patients have relapsed and their symptoms have returned when the carer or parent has been particularly over-emotional with them. It has also been suggested that this can actually cause the schizophrenia to develop in the first place, and that over-emotion can actually cause them to develop the schizophrenia. Moving on to cognitive explanations, schizophrenia is characterised by a disruption of normal thought processes. This can be caused by reduced processing in the ventral striatum, which is associated with negative symptoms, which I've talked about in the biological explanations video, and also reduced processing of information in the temporal and cingulate gyrus, which is associated with hallucinations. So there's a biological cause for the schizophrenia, however it's then affecting the cognitive function of this person with schizophrenia. So Frith et al. In 1992 identified two kinds of dysfunctional thought processing. The first is meta-representation and the second is central control. Meta-representation enables us to reflect on our thoughts and behaviour and the thoughts and behaviour of others. It allows us insight into our own goals and intentions, and it allows us to interpret others' behaviour. So in those people with schizophrenia, disruption of this would disrupt their ability to recognise their own actions and thoughts, distinguish from the actions and thoughts of other people. So this explains some of the auditory and visual hallucinations that they might have and the delusions of thought insertion. If they're having a thought and they can't distinguish that from their own thought or the thought of somebody else, or somebody else says something and they internalise that as their own thought, it's going to get very confusing. That disordered thinking is becoming very messy. So it's meaning that they are unable to sort of distinguish between themselves and other people. Central control is the ability to suppress automatic responses while we perform deliberate actions. Disorganised speech and thought disorder could result from not being able to suppress automatic speech and automatic thought. So, you're going around your day-to-day life, you're in class or you're at home and, a thought pops into your head. I don't know if you've ever been doing something dangerous and a thought pops into your head of, oh my God, I might fall, or, you're driving really fast on the motorway and you think, oh my God, I've got to be careful because I might crash. That's like an automatic thought that's triggered. In people with schizophrenia, they find that really difficult to suppress that automatic thought. So in people without schizophrenia, it's really easy for us to sort of like push that thought away and think, oh, actually, I'll be careful. I know the dangers, I know the risks, etc. Whereas people with schizophrenia, they often suffer from broken sentences and can't finish what they're saying properly, because every time something pops into their head, it's triggering another thought and another association with that. So they're constantly distracted because they're constantly thinking about something else. So they're trying to have a conversation with you and they're constantly being distracted by other things. So I hope you enjoyed my video on psychological explanations, and I hope that has helped your understanding of those somewhat. If you've got any questions, let me know or drop them in the comments. Thank you.